Hey y'all, this is B with Cult Confer, and today I'm coming to you with a new segment. This is called What I've Been Reading. Mixing Engineer's Handbook. It's by Bobby Owsinski. So when I began to really start messing around with my DAW and I wanted to record music and I wanted it to sound good, as we all know, a big part of that comes in the mixing process. I had no idea what mixing was exactly. I think I had a very small-minded concept of what mixing actually was. And as far as getting into technical terms, no. I did not understand anything, not really. So this book was really extremely helpful in getting me started. I'm not gonna say that I went from zero to hero, but I definitely went from zero to knowing something. Having a good foundation, a good, some solid groundwork for the actual mixing process and, understanding what kind of effects do what and understanding a broader spectrum of mixing in general when it comes to not just balance. It's not all just, levels and panning. This book goes over a great deal of material to give you that groundwork. In chapter 1, it gives you a little bit of background, the evolution of mixing, it delves into some mixing styles and whatnot, from New York to LA, London, Nashville. It explains some differences between live mixing and studio mixing, which was also very helpful because they're kind of two different ball fields, really. Chapter 2, it delves pretty hardcore into monitors. You'd be surprised how much you might actually not know about monitors. All sorts of things can affect what you're hearing through your monitors. Of course, some of the obvious, the quality of your monitors, the settings that you use on your monitors, the listening environment that you're in, whether it's what your monitors are set on, how close they are to each other, which direction they're facing, the material of the walls around it, how high your monitors are sitting up, the correlation of monitors to your ears. There's just all kinds of factors that play in that you may not have known, so it really goes in depth with that, and I feel like it was a very important part of the book. It was very knowledgeable about what you should actually be looking for as you're setting up your studio monitors. Chapter 3 was about some mix preparation, also another very important thing. A lot of people overlook it, definitely. It really shows you a lot on just tweaking your timing and your fades, eliminating excess noises, arranging, consolidating your tracks, reordering them, setting up buses, assigning channels, all that kind of preparation for actually getting into the point where you're ready to mix your song that you've got recorded and laid out for you. In chapter 4, it kind of goes over having a concept for your mix before you begin. That being the idea that, you really want to have an idea of where it's going before you start. Otherwise, you're just gonna get in there and you're gonna fuck with parameters, and then you're just gonna run around in circles, and at the end of the day, you're probably not gonna be able to get the sound that you want. Definitely, think about what you want your mix to be, what you want it to sound like, each sound, before you get into this. This also talks a lot about arrangements. A really important section in this chapter, a very short section, but it talks about the 6 elements of a mix. When I first began mixing, I really felt like it was just about balance and level and panning and, the occasional effect here or there on whatever instrument. I had no idea that there was so much more, even though I feel like I've heard some really, really great producers make some wonderful fucking sounds, just come out of the speakers. But after reading this, I can appreciate what these guys are doing so much more, because there's so much more to it. The 6 elements in a mix, it talks about balance, frequency range, panorama, dimension, dynamics, and interest. I just want to say this is a really important part of the book. When you get to this part, really take note and try to understand, because there's a chapter on each of these, and I think that will give you a much more broad perspective on what mixing is actually. So from there, after it goes into those, 6, it will start a chapter on each of them. They've got a whole chapter on Panorama, placing audio in the sound field. It's like when you've got a guitar hard left in your ear and your headphones, and your right headphone has died out, and you know guitar 2 is supposed to be there in your favorite song, but it's not fucking there because your headphone is gone, and so you only hear the one guitar, and then you're pissed off. Another big surprise about this chapter about Panorama was it goes into depth explaining all the different kinds of speakers. Whether it's 3-channel, your standard left, right, and a mono surround, something I think a lot of us are familiar with, the 5.1 surround sound, all the way up through 11.1 and theater sound systems, modern ones. There were so many sound systems, I was honestly overwhelmed. I think that after you look into these though, you'll kind of realize you want to kind of mix according to maybe a standard of what your consumers are listening through, I suppose. Point being, you want it to sound good, hopefully on all of them. It'll definitely give you some insight on that. This, chapter 7, a really good chapter. It breaks down using your EQ. A lot of what it talks about is kind of like the goals of what you should be using your EQ for. Throughout this book, there's a lot of really great graphs that give you kind of like a cheat sheet for ranges of frequencies that, can eliminate certain weird sounds like boxy sounds or big thundering bass that just is completely killing your track. And it has a lot of actionable methods behind what they are showing you how to do. It gives you a fair understanding of what you could do to maybe eliminate something that you don't want there, or bring out something that you do want there, especially when it comes to EQ. Mixers on the internet talk about, man, that track is so muddy. This track is fucking muddy, dude. You'll understand. You'll understand what they mean by that. And it'll give you a good chance to figure out how to eliminate that. In fact, there's many methods through here eliminating mud from all kinds of instruments that are playing. One of the very best lists in this book is your magic frequencies. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you it's on page 97. Every instrument has at least one frequency that might be considered magic. That means you might want to try those frequencies first to make an instrument or voice sound fuller or more distinct. It gives you the magic frequencies for bass guitar, kick drum, snare, ragtoms, floor toms, hi-hats and cymbals, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, organ, piano, horns, voice, strings, conga. Now, of course, this is a little bit of a generalization. Your instruments do have their own frequency range, so pretty applicable information if you ask me. It's been hella useful in my tracks. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not a genius at this yet, but Yas, this. Thank you. Alright, so one of the 6 was dimension that I mentioned earlier, the 6 elements of mixing. There's a chapter on this, and it's adding effects, basically. This chapter happens to go over delay and reverb pretty damn well. If you get kind of confused between the two, whether it's what they are, how you should use them, or what you can achieve using them, this chapter will definitely enlighten you on some of that. One more it also goes over is modulation, so that's pretty great too. Chapter 9 is about the dynamics. The dynamics chapter, again, really helpful. Compression, limiting, gating, de-essing. If you don't know what those are, you're gonna get a great wealth of information on each of those. I didn't understand. I kind of got like through context clues what people were doing with these effects, but I didn't really understand. So after you get done with this book, you will have a way better knowledge in each of those dynamic effects. Chapter 10, the interest element. Now this chapter is really kind of about just taking your mix and making it go from just mediocre to great. It's not always about, having the greatest song with the most things and doing the most all the time. A lot of times it's really just about your arrangement, really just about bringing a certain thing forward to really make it pop and stand out, and that be like a focal point for you. This chapter was really good in showing you just kind of how to bring those certain things forth. From there, it goes into chapter 11, which is advanced techniques. It shows you some pretty cool things, cleaning up your tracks, you know, with clicks and pops and things like that might make a track sound sloppy or shitty, or you just be like, oh, what the fuck was that noise? It goes over some automation, which is really important when it comes to, again, talking about dynamics control. Automation can help so much, or just with balance in general. Having, you know, an instrument pop forward or whatever, when we talked about points of interest, you know, maybe you just need that instrument just a little bit louder. Maybe you just want that to go up for the chorus or something like that. So it talks about automation, and, you know, you can automate all different kinds of parameters. The act of making a parameter change on its own, which is very nice, very useful. It talks about sound replacement. A really good topic that this book talked about was gain staging, actually. Gain staging is the proper setting of the gain of each stage of the signal path, so that no one section overloads. You know when your meters are going through the fucking roof and they're fucking red as fuck, and you're like, man, this is probably gonna sound really shit in my headphones. That's what this is about. By chapter 12, it even talks a little bit about mastering your mix. I wouldn't say that this goes over mastering very much itself. Also a helpful chapter, kind of guiding you how to mix in a direction that won't destroy the track before you can even get it to the master engineer. And if the master engineer's job is easy, by the time you get your master track back after your mix, you're gonna be so very happy with yourself. And your master engineer's gonna be so very happy with you because you didn't just send him some piece of garbage that he can't really do any work on. Part 2. I'm not gonna lie, I have not read this section yet. I might even do another video on this book. It's literally half of the book. Let's see, all in all, this book, the first half was only 189 pages. So if you feel like you lack knowledge in the mixing department and what it actually is, or any terminology, if you just feel overwhelmed about the whole idea of mixing, you don't even have to read this whole book to get a solid foundation. You just have to read half of it. However, I know that I'm going to read the second half because this probably will save me years and probably has so much wealth of knowledge. There's interviews from several professional mixers. Just to name a few, there's Bob Brockman, Jerry Finn, John Guess, Nathaniel Kunkel, Greg Penny. You know, it lists off a lot of the things that they worked on. It just goes through and it interviews them and asks questions, specific questions about, you know, their mixing processes and what they might do to handle this situation in mixing. I really can't wait to read that. I actually want to read part 1 first again, just because the first time I did it, I went through and I took a bunch of notes. Was very helpful, really lodged a lot of the terminology and like a full understanding of, you know, what they're fucking talking about when they say things like, oh, I gotta de-ess this, or oh, I need to use compression because this. Now I know, now I get it, now I understand. This book has been extremely helpful in doing that. I'm gonna read part 1 again just because I'm like that. I like to really fucking imprint it in there. I feel like part 2 is gonna be the shit. I can't imagine being able to sit in a room with all these different mixers and get to talk to them about this craft and really allow them to spread their knowledge to me. So I'm really excited to read the part 2. Furthermore, some of the last things we have in this book, glossary. So if you don't know a term and you feel like it's throwing you off, if you feel like it's the first time you've read A Clockwork Orange and you get to like paragraph 2 and you're like, what the fuck did I just read? Glossary, man. Go back here, look up the term, you'll be like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. I'm gonna keep reading. Thankfully, you're not reading NADSAT, so there's also a delay chart. It's for timing your delays, which is also nice. And then there's a bit about the author. He's got several more books, so if you like this one, you definitely should check out the others. I certainly intend to myself. The Mixing Engineer's Handbook. It was easy to read, the concepts were straightforward, the knowledge that's inside it is very applicable, and it was fucking great. This book is fucking great. Get this book, buy this book, read this book. Do it. Save yourself some stress. Don't just learn from the internet. The internet's great. We love the internet. YouTube is fantastic. But sometimes you just need to pick up a fucking book, man. Just pick up a fucking book. Read the fucking book. Just read. Read the words. Follow the things. Read. Understand. Comprehend. Read the book. Don't just YouTube shit. Thanks, Bobby. This book was a shit. I appreciate you. Can't wait to read more. Gonna read more. Udabomb.com. So anyways, people, that was my review on the Mixing Engineer's Handbook by Bob Owsinski. Excuse me, Bobby Owsinski. Hopefully I got it right. If not, sorry, Bob. If you enjoyed this kind of content, or if you think that you will enjoy more of this kind of content in the future, then definitely go ahead and click down here and subscribe to the channel, and also let me know in the comments down below what other kind of reviews you might like to see, whether it's gear. I'm not really a gear junkie, I'll be honest with you. If you read the book or have read the book, please let me know what you thought of it. I'd love to get a little discussion going about it. If you enjoyed this video today, you want more, definitely give it a like. Likes help. So anyways, that was that. I hope that that book helps you if you decide to go ahead and read it. And happy music making. Bobby Owsinski. Jesus Christ. Bobby Owsinski. Bobby Owsinski. That's my boy. Video indigestion at Adam Ivy.